Guess what, folks? Sometimes the narcissistic person is the one who's betrayed. Let's talk about that. The big question is, what happens when a narcissistic person is betrayed? It obviously happens. Obviously not nearly as often as it happens the other way around, but it happens, right? If any of you have an example of that situation, you can also drop that in the comments. But the big question is, what does it look like? So let me give some examples. A narcissistic parent catches you in a lie about a party or a family get-together that you were having and you don't invite them. And you pretended like it wasn't happening. A partner cheats on a narcissistic partner. A group of friends start a separate group chat about the narcissistic friend that's in their friend group, and that narcissistic friend finds it and reads it. A group of folks in a new startup business kind of thing slowly plot a way to squeeze the narcissistic person out of the business and do it on their own. And by the time the narcissistic person has found out, the new business gets launched and the narcissistic person is forced out despite having had some good ideas and offered up some financial backing. You may wonder, does the narcissistic person get hurt when they're betrayed? What happens? Yeah, they do get hurt. It would be unfair to say otherwise, because even though the love they may have or the way they show up in a relationship and their behavior, it's not always nice, and it may even be sort of part of the catalyst for the betrayal. For example, the friends may have had it with the narcissistic friend, but they know that anytime they try to tell the narcissistic friend her behavior is awful, they get that same victimized tantrum, but they just wanted a place to talk about it amongst themselves. Or the family member that didn't include the narcissistic parent in the get-together wanted one drama-free get-together on a meaningful day. Or the person who cheats on the narcissistic partner may say, hey, listen, I know cheating is wrong. This marriage has been dead in the water for a long time, but I don't want to get divorced because of all the custody drama, which will come. So yeah, I did something I shouldn't have, and I did it to feel good, but it was wrong. Or the colleagues who knew the narcissistic person would blow up the business, so they figure out a way to get them out before that could happen, right? I'm not saying those things are right, but I'm saying that those could often be the circumstances. Even listening to this, you may think, is it a betrayal if someone engaged in this behavior to survive in a toxic relationship? And the answer to that is yes, it was a breach of trust. It was a violation of the rules. You may be thinking, oh, come on, Dr. Ramani, they've done it to me before. They cheated on me. They've had get-togethers that they lied about without me. They have gossiped about me. They have screwed me in a business deal before. Yes, and that was a betrayal too. And sometimes their betrayal wasn't necessarily tit for tat. So you may cheat on them and they never cheated on you, but they have spent the last 10 years gaslighting, manipulating, insulting, menacing, and financially controlling you. Betrayals aren't about equivalences, and each betrayal is a separate event, okay? So this video is really about what happens to the narcissistic person when they are betrayed, because people wonder about this. The first question is, are they hurt? And I suppose the answer is, in their fashion, yes. They believed in whatever this relationship with you is, whether it was a family relationship, romantic, friend, and that trust got breached. So yes, whatever that means to them, it might have hurt their feelings. But then, pretty quickly, it takes a different turn, because hurt, which feels vulnerable, pivots into an ego injury. And listen, we all people get hurt when we are betrayed. And frankly, all of our egos get bruised when we're betrayed. We feel foolish, we feel played, ridiculous, humiliated. However, the healthier a person is, the more that the emotional hurt takes primacy over their ego being bruised. In a narcissistic person, that gets flipped. And the vulnerability of the feeling hurt fuels a volcanic, and I do mean volcanic, rage. Because the betrayal for a narcissistic person is a moment when their deep insecurity and shame narrative are activated big time. And when that happens, listen, wars have been started over these betrayal moments. If the narcissistic person just stayed in the vulnerable moment of hurt, then repair could happen. But that's not how this personality style works. Because the narcissistic hurt in the wake of betrayal turns into unfettered rage so quickly, we may not even fully register that they were hurt. And frankly, there isn't much that can be done at that point. You know how defending, explaining, and engaging don't work when you are even in the not betrayed times in the relationship. It sure as hell isn't going to work now. There is no version of you saying, hey, now we're even, right? I shouldn't have been hanging with that guy at work, and you shouldn't have cheated on me a few years ago. But let's just move forward and the slate is clean. There is no version of you saying, you have brought chaos to every family gathering, and we wanted Mary's return from her long trip to be peaceful. There is no version of you saying, hey, listen, we didn't want to just sort of like kick you out and not invite you to stuff, but you were so malicious that we needed a group text to just cope with you since you never listen to us and you don't seem to see how you affect other people. Ultimately, it can feel that betrayal is the only way to stay in contact with the narcissistic person. And that is a tricky turn in the road because you are now in the biggest catch-22 of all. You either feel guilty or scared about the ramifications of leaving and then the survival behaviors, having the party, for example, without them and not telling them, or having the overly friendly get-togethers with the coworker. These things are also bringing up guilt and fear. And more than a few people over the years of me doing this have said to me that I betrayed them. I was as bad as them. Ultimately, I cheated too, or I was secretive, or I did bad things. And that betrayal you engage in, it can stop people, you, from seeing clearly the patterns, and then you get stuck in these toxic cycles for years. Some of you may think, if I do these betray things because I think the narcissistic person is unreasonable, is that really betrayal? Sadly, I'd argue, yes, it still is. And this is why when we can get out, it's cleaner. The reason these relationships get messier and messier over time is that we're trying to survive within an impossible situation. It's almost inevitable that someone will betray a narcissist if the relationship lasts long enough. When a narcissistic person is betrayed, it can feel like mythological Mount Olympus gods kind of vindictiveness. In fact, if you have already been betrayed by the narcissistic person and stayed in the relationship, you may be startled by the difference in standards and in their reactions and frankly in the punishments. You, in the face of you betraying them, may be faced with rage, smear campaigns, enduring them posting all kinds of contorted social media posts that are clearly about you, passive aggression, months of silent treatments, and an epic level of victimhood. In some cases, the narcissistic person may be the one who decides to go no contact or end the relationship with you and be very vindictive in how they approach the breakup. For example, an even messier divorce than you were initially concerned about. However, in some cases, especially with vulnerable narcissistic folks, you may see the betrayal translate into what looks like an irritable depression. They may become very withdrawn, sad, victimized, maybe even frankly depressed. And that, frankly, can feel worse than the rage. There is a difference when a person who does have empathy, but is trying to survive and not end all contact in a narcissistic relationship, is doing this betraying. And obviously the betrayal that happens by a narcissistic person. Qualitatively, there is a difference. Often the betrayal by, I'm going to say the not narcissistic person is not persistent. It's often a one-off. But the non-narcissistic person is not gaslighting and manipulating and all the rest of it. Whereas the ongoing emotional abuse of the narcissistic relationship is often a daily event. The literal not being seen or experienced as a separate human being. But ultimately, big or small, narcissistic people can and do get betrayed. Usually, this will change the relationship forever. Healthy relationships actually can repair and often do repair after betrayal. They may still end, but the honest making of amends and accountability can allow growth and healing on both sides. That's not going to happen in a narcissistic relationship. The ego injury, the rage, it can play on an existing suspicious, almost paranoia that bolsters the theory that the narcissistic person has that everyone is out to get them. This video is not about the narcissistic person who perceives betrayal when it's not them, when it's not there. For example, you tell them that you're going out to dinner with an old friend. You even invite them to join you for that dinner, and they know it's happening, but then they don't want to go because they're being grumpy, and then they say you're betraying them by still going. Okay, it's not the misperception thing. This video is about when it really is a betrayal. Because it happens, and it happens more often than you think. People are human beings. However, there will be no repair of this. They won't hear your accountability or apology. You did the ultimate sin. You made them feel foolish, look bad, feel hurt. And the catastrophic impact of that kind of injury to a narcissistic person means that there is no fixing it. Also keep in mind that if it happens and they do stay in it, you'll be punished for it for the rest of your life. Now listen, most of us don't come out of betrayal unscathed, and we may no longer trust people for a long time or ourselves. We may remain angry and never forgive the betrayer. All of this is multiplied when the betrayer is not accountable or just simply willing to cop to what they did and that it hurt us. The sting of the betrayal may still be there, but we don't feel crazy if someone owns up to, yeah, I did that and it wasn't okay. For many of us, after we are betrayed, even the more messed up narcissistic betrayal, that does leave us feeling insane. We don't devote our lives to being angry. We go through a process of grief. We have a different relationship with trust, but we heal and we move forward. We may even be able to maintain a relationship with the narcissistic person and not rage at them, but perhaps trust them less. That's not the case for the narcissistic person if they're betrayed, who will likely never move forward from this, whether it's a lifetime revenge or them just cutting you off. This is a delicate issue and a hard one to take on in a video because some of you may be thinking, well, I don't forgive them. Isn't that me holding a grudge after they betrayed you? No. Not forgiving them often happens on the heels of repeated betrayals, not just one. Repeated betrayals that left you feeling unsafe in the world, not just being left off a party invite. Betrayals that they were never accountable for. Betrayals that didn't stop. Betrayals that you begged them to explain and that they blamed you for. That's the part you're not forgiving. And despite the narcissistic person feeling entitled to forgiveness, they aren't going to give it to you if you betray them. And even if they pretend to, maybe for optics, you will know that you are forever going to have to wear the albatross of shame around your neck, the scarlet A in perpetuity, for having betrayed them. Then there is one last twist to this. Many survivors do mistake thinking bad thoughts or having certain kinds of wishes, like, I hope their plane gets delayed by 24 hours so they can't make it for dinner. I hope they aren't home when I get there. I can't stand them and I don't want to see them. Some people think that that's a betrayal. No, a thought is not a betrayal. My personal take, and I'm not the betrayal police, but my personal take is that it becomes a betrayal when it turns into behavior. Daydreaming about how life could be different with a loving, empathic, kind spouse, or at least getting rid of this one, is not betrayal. Wishing your mother gets the flu so she can't spoil your kid's birthday party, that's not betrayal. So don't do that to yourself. Betrayal of a narcissistic person happens, and when it does, and should they find out, be prepared for a 9.0 earthquake, a Category 5 storm, and something that can take you into a dark place of more guilt, confusion, self-blame, and shame. It's a bit like Prometheus, who stole fire from the gods. He had to endure his liver being pecked out by an eagle every day for eternity. It would grow back at night, and he would face the torment again, day after day, because he pissed off the dudes in power. It will be a Promethean fate that awaits anyone who runs afoul of or betrays a narcissist. And your empathy will only fuel your guilt and your repentance. But as for them, their hurt turns into vengeance so fast that it's really hard to clock where the hurt ends and the vindictiveness begins. I suppose the best path forward is no one's betraying anyone, but that's not how people work. But be careful, like I said, lest you end up with that Promethean fate. Thanks again.